Okay, well, thanks everyone for jumping in here and joining us for our third installment in our series, Coffee with Clinic Sites. Just an opportunity for us to jump in and talk about the different things that matter when it comes to marketing your clinic. We always say you're great at what you do, but sometimes there's all of a sudden this expectation that as a business owner, you're expected to creatively market and grow your clinic using all these different digital tools, and you're in overwhelm thinking, I don't even know where to start. I don't know what to do. This all feels like a lot to work with. So this is an opportunity where we basically want to pretend like we're at coffee together, and you're saying, hey, I know my website could be better. I got it built. I've invested a bunch of time into it. Maybe I invested a bunch of money into it. I know it could be better. What do I do? And so this is just an opportunity for us to kind of sit down together here for 20 minutes or so and talk about it. And in this one today, we're going to talk about your website. What can we do to turn more of those website visitors into patients? Maybe we know that people are coming to your website, you're bringing traffic, but we're not necessarily seeing the bookings you want to see. We're not necessarily seeing people reaching out to you. And so this is an opportunity for us to help you with that. So just to cover our agenda today, again, we're going to keep it short and sweet. The goal is to keep it as if we're sitting down for a cup of coffee. We're going to hit the goal of your website is to answer questions from people who visit your site. And we're going to talk about how we answer those questions. We're going to take a look at your content. Maybe it's not the most exciting topic to think about changing the copy as it is throughout your website, but it is one of the most important pieces that's going to change the game as far as how people can kind of navigate through your site. We're going to talk about the mobile experience. It's something that can often be forgotten because we live on our desktops so often when we're at work, but that is a really core part of what makes a great website. And we're going to talk about some really practical tips to build trust, because that's essentially what we're looking to do when we try to convert someone from being a visitor to a patient, is they need to trust you before they're willing to take that next step. So I'm going to talk about some practical tips for that. And then, of course, at the end, we're going to have some time for Q&A. So throughout this session today, you're welcome to drop your questions into the chat. Some of those Kelty may answer on the fly, but some of them will actually come to at the end and have a little opportunity to have some back and forth if there's any questions that come up. So don't hesitate to drop those in the chat because we will have time for those. So let's jump into it. The entire goal of your website is to answer the questions that the visitors are asking. We very rarely do any of us pull up a website and think, oh, this is just fun. I'm just going to look around at some local businesses within my area and just see what they're doing, what they're up to. It's very rare that that's what we're doing on the web. What we're actually doing is we're very task-oriented. In your case, maybe it's someone's dealing with some kind of pain. Maybe they've been asked by a family member to schedule something for them. Maybe they've just been recommended to go visit you by a friend. And when they land on your website, they have questions that they need answered. And so this is a framework of how we want to set up our website that really shifts the entire approach of how we build our website, how we set up our navigation, the content we write. And so I lead off with this because it actually sets the tone for everything else we're going to talk about today, which is that answering those questions is what's going to help make it a great experience for people. If you just come at it with, let's say, a creative approach, with a approach of you-centric, where I'm going to talk about me, and I want to figure out how to set up my website to talk about my business the most. What's going to happen is the things you think are important might be different than what the visitor thinks are important. And so I'll use as a quick example, one of the most common reasons people pull up a website is often to find a phone number. They want to give you a call. To you, that might be the 29th thing you think about, but it's actually the first for a lot of people when they're pulling up their website. So how do we make it so it's super easy to contact you? Well, once we establish that, it's really easy to determine that we need a phone number, maybe in the top right corner of the website, or maybe we make the contact page really easy to get to, and we make the phone number prominent. It's a really simple way to answer that question. But you see how the focus shifted the minute we determined that was the main goal that the person had when they landed on the website. So I just want to brainstorm for a minute here. What questions are people asking when they land on your website? Where is your business located? Are you able to help me with my specific issue? I've literally got back pain right now. Can you help me solve this problem? I'm now navigating your website to figure out if you actually deal with the specific problem I have. Are you qualified to help me? Um, you're close to me, that's great, but are you actually good at what you do? How do I know that I can trust that you can actually solve this issue for me? What will the appointment treatment be like? It's going to take me a bit of a drive to get there. I have to block out part of my day or take some time off work. Is this going to be an appointment that I want to be at, essentially? Do you have any appointments available soon? Very practically, I'm maybe thinking of 3 different practitioners right now. I want to know who's first available because this pain hurts so much. And so I'm really trying to figure out time. Looking at these questions, this really establishes what do we want what do we want our website to say and do? Because if these are the core ideas, then it really shifts how our navigation looks. Again, the type of words we put onto the website. And this is just a really quick list that I brainstormed, but it can go beyond that. So you want to think through, why are people coming to my website and how do I make it as effective as possible to answer those questions for them? The idea here is that everyone has different questions. Some people come with one question, some people come with all 6 of those, or they come with 20 other ones. But once those questions have been answered, that's the hurdle. That's the piece they need to figure out before they're ready to take the next step. We're going to talk in a minute about why making it easy for them to book is super important, but they're not going to book if they have questions about whether or not you're close to them, whether or not you're open tomorrow, whether or not it's going to be a good experience to bring their children to. Whatever it is, whatever the questions they have, we need to get those resolved before we can take them to the next step. So now let's take a close look at your content. Again, this is not a really exciting topic because it doesn't necessarily make our website feel super flashy. It doesn't make it feel necessarily super professional. But at the end of the day, the content is so core to the experience because what our eyes do is immediately zone in on a word. So even on the most beautifully designed website or the most horribly designed website, we zone in on words to figure out to get context for what we're learning, for what we're, again, trying to quickly get those answers, and getting clarity around that content is so important. So I want to have a few quick tips of how you can assess your content. My main idea here is to simplify everything. So really trying to break it down to the basics, because the more content you have, the more overwhelming it can feel. So I really want us to audit our content on our website, asking ourselves, is it necessary and is it up to date? I was, in preparation for this, pulling up a number of websites just to kind of see the types of content clinics are putting on their website, to see what kinds of things they're doing. The amount of times, the amount of websites I pulled up that talked about this pandemic that's just hit and how we're having to change some of our processes to figure out how to keep you safe right now. It's not that it's wrong to say something about COVID on your website, but having these massive alerts across your banners maybe aren't timely anymore, and maybe actually distract from the main thing we're trying to do, which is to answer some of those other questions. You haven't gone in and updated your content. So that's one example of content that just ends up out of date, takes up a lot of your page, and all of a sudden distracts from really allowing us to access kind of that core data we're going to. So just going through an audit and saying, do I still need this here? Is that page still necessary? I have a blog on there. Are we even still using it? We had ambitions to use a blog, but what if we didn't actually use it? So maybe there's lots of those kinds of things we can clear out. Having less unnecessary content is immediately going to make everything else feel more clear. Another idea is to turn paragraphs into sentences. And the reality is that people don't read on the internet the same way that they might read a magazine or a brochure. With the screen, your eyes just fatigue a lot faster, and we actually scan a lot more than we kind of in-depth read. And so assessing where you have those paragraphs, again, it was not uncommon as I was looking at different sites to pull up sites that had 3 and 4 paragraphs. And I always say, the first sentence is almost always read. The second sentence is read half the time, and the third one is like maybe a quarter of the time. Like, it just keeps dropping from there. And that content, what it does is it actually makes it feel kind of a little bit overwhelming as far as how much is there. I don't have time to digest all this. Again, I'm just looking for some specific answers. So I think a great way to simplify your content is to say, how can I take that paragraph and say it in 1 or 2 sentences instead of kind of that much more in-depth view? It's not to say there are people who aren't going to want that in-depth information. So maybe there's just a way to nest that a little bit deeper into your site, where we're not putting all of that on all the core pages. If you really want to dive into some specific topics, give them that more in-depth information for some of those researchers out there who really need to know a lot more before they're willing to take the next step. Let's make that possible, but let's again, kind of nest it down into the site. And also just connecting with how the visitor is thinking. So again, taking away some of this like I language, not so much thinking about yourself, but thinking about what are they thinking about. So instead of saying, uh, we're the best chiropractic team in Denver, starting from the approach of, hey, are you dealing with back pain right now? Because it's one thing to make a claim, it's another thing to actually connect with the pain that they're feeling in that moment. And then later it can say, are you dealing with back pain right now? Hey, great news. We've got the best team available to help you. We're here to help you to solve that issue, but you connected with their pain first. So again, that's hitting that question of, can they help me with the issue I'm dealing with, as opposed to who are they going to claim that they are, which maybe that's not relevant to them in this very moment. Just on that subject, there's a really great book I recommend called Story Brand by Donald Miller. And it really takes about this whole idea of shifting your entire marketing language to being centric to the visitor, and how that actually changes that entire moment. So if this is something you want to take really seriously, is how do I convert better with my copy? StoryBrand is a highly recommended book. I want to talk about your navigation. And the idea here of limiting your navigation to 7 clear menu items. It's very easy to add things. It's very easy to think, oh, we need that on our website. We need that on our website. And the reality is, there's kind of this magic number that I always talk about, which is that 7 menu items seems to be the max that our brains kind of want to understand as far as filtering down. We were trying to make a decision again when we're answering those questions we talked about earlier, and we look through the main menu and we're making a selection on which one we think is most likely for it to be under. For some reason, the minute you hit past that 7, you immediately start to feel confused, like, well, that information might be under there or it might be under that one, but it no longer feels clear about which one it is. And the other why I also use the word clear here is because often people use navigation as an opportunity to be creative, when really this is not a time to be creative. This is a time to be really clear, because if I see a menu item and you've taken a very creative approach to what you called that thing, but it's not intuitive to me as a visitor, I'm not going to click it. Again, people aren't looking to play around on your website. They don't want to just press all the buttons and load up every page and do a full scan. They're trying to get their answers. And the reality is, if things aren't clear, if it feels muddy to them, what they're going to do is they're just going to click back to their Google search, and they're going to go to the next one, because I don't understand all these words. I don't understand these terms. I don't understand their philosophy that they're trying to communicate here. I'm trying to get these questions answered. And so we want to be really, really clear on what we put there. So this is a great opportunity to audit. Again, make sure you're using all your pages that are in your menu. Again, I saw a few COVID-19 menu items during my analysis, so maybe that doesn't have to be there. Maybe there's the opportunity to move some things into a secondary menu. So one clinic I saw had now hiring in their main menu. Very great to post that. They're going to want a new team member to join them, but is there a secondary spot to put that, where we're taking it away from our primary goal, which is to drive these people to become patients? Now hiring kind of gets in the way of that moment. Another suggestion here is, can you shorten the titles? Maybe instead of using 3 words, there's a better word you can choose that's 1, because again, just seeing less items in that top is really going to help. And I just want to show you some examples here. So here's an example where I found, again, the health and safety button on the right side was that one I was mentioning earlier, that had the COVID piece underneath it. Here, their blog was not active, so that would be an opportunity. So I think we're seeing about 9 options here, which feels like a bit much. I find that the team and about us feel the same. So if I'm looking to learn something about that practice, I don't know what I'm going to find under about us. Whereas I'm like, I think the team is the profiles, but what's over there? So thinking through, like, is there a way to combine those 2 ideas? Can it maybe become part of a drop down? Again, just to simplify what that looks like. This next one here, this is the one actually I was referencing earlier with the now hiring in there. Unique services, I don't necessarily know what I'm getting there, versus treatments, coverage, blog, contact us. Those are all good. Sometimes I recommend with contact us and about us, can you cut the word us from them? Like, it means the same thing. It simplifies some of the words. It just puts less words into your main menu. This one was great. The reason I highlighted this one was, they've obviously determined get directions is really important with the green button in the top right there, but they didn't add any contrast to it. So it's actually going to be really hard for a lot of people to read. So I would recommend that. And then also health blog. I think they could probably simplify that to be just blog, but overall, I think that navigation is nice and clean and simple. Schedule appointment. If some people put that right in their main navigation, and then I find that those words are a little bit long, maybe moving to like a book now or schedule now would just make that a bit easier. But just wanted to provide a few examples and practical tips around that. So moving on from there, never forget the mobile experience. This is one of those things where, again, we're all at work. We're typically on a desktop, on a laptop, or on an iPad, but we're not realizing that about half of our traffic to the website is coming from people on their phone. And so just to really remember to take that opportunity to explore what that experience feels like. One note I want to make here is that starts with your Google business profile, because often when you're searching on your phone, the first thing Google brings up is the map listings, or they're searching in Google Maps for somewhere near them, and then that's where it starts. So just making sure that this profile has been assessed, that you've claimed it. I think I read somewhere the other day that it's like 70% of Google business profiles aren't even claimed by the business. Once you claim it, you can keep the hours up to date. You can make sure all the contact information is up to date. You can put photos in there, lots of different things to really get that profile. So it is a great first impression. Second is, how easy is it to book? So again, if I'm on your phone, you're not doing in-depth research in that moment, or it's less likely. You're probably there very task-oriented, looking to book. And so I really wanted to make a recommendation here to make sure that your online booking platform, we love Jane, we've partnered with them and love what they're doing. And they've just made this amazing mobile experience where it's very simple to go in there and schedule your time with them. And so thinking through that whole end-to-end experience of the way it starts on Google and the way it ends with your booking software, it's just making sure that can all be done. And kind of related to that, I just talk about how testing that everything works. I love this idea. I mean, I have this analogy that if someone walks into your clinic and there's a puddle on the floor, you watch them slip and you're like, quick, we need a mop to dry that up. If that moment happens inside of your website where someone's like, I don't know what's happening here, I'm just going to close this. Maybe it's really slow to load. Maybe it doesn't load. Maybe a link's broken. You don't know that that's happening unless you're running some great kind of tools that kind of provide that information to you. You don't know that's happening. So what you have to do is manually give your phone to someone or say, hey, one of your friends, colleagues, say, do you mind pulling up my website and just trying to book an appointment? I just want to watch how that experience is. Watch how it loads on their phone, watch how they navigate to it, check whether or not the navigation feels intuitive to them. Did they click the book now? Did that link work? Were they able to schedule it all? You need to see how that feels, because again, that's half the traffic. If you have two people coming to your website, one of them is on a phone. And so we need to make sure that is that we're aware of what's happening and whether or not things are working as we expected there. Some key tips to build trust. I'm sorry if I'm going really fast here. I'm just trying to really get through this. I promised you I'd try to keep this within 20 minutes. And so we're kind of coming to the end of it here. So I just want to make sure we get through everything. To build trust, there's a few really practical tips I want to do. Last week, we talked in depth about Google reviews. I wanted to mention it here in case anyone wasn't on that webinar. We have that posted, and I'll have a link to that in a minute just to dive in deep to it. But Google reviews are an amazing way to show credibility, to show authority, to show that you can promise on all these claims that you've mentioned. And so within that, having some kind of Google widget available on your site, posting those reviews in some way really just shows people that, hey, I can take the next step with this person. I'm not going to be suckered or duped into this, because look at all these other people who've had a great experience and have talked about it within their reviews. The next step is a team page with bios. If you don't show your face, if you don't talk about yourself, I just get a little bit nervous as to who I'm going to see when I get there. If you're willing to put your picture online, talk about your experience, maybe some personal stories, maybe some personal photos, all of a sudden I feel like I get to know you a little bit more, and I'm more comfortable taking my time, taking my money to come and use your business. And I think a team page with bios is a great way to establish that. Here's an example of one of those types of pages. And right away, as you read through her bio, like you feel like you get to know Kara, you connect with her, you're comfortable taking that next and scheduling your appointment. Images. Images go a really long way to just how the site feels, how it's going to feel to connect with you. If the images are low resolution, small, poor quality, it doesn't do anything. And maybe if anything, it could hurt the experience. But the minute you start adding quality images, you just change the entire perception of your business, of the experience on the website. So kind of step one on these is just quality images, making sure they're high resolution if they're good quality photographs. That's fantastic. Stock photography is okay as far as getting that initial impression out there. That's great. But to take that a next step is to get personalized images on there where you're actually showing actual photos of your space, maybe of your team, of the treatments you're doing, of your neighborhood. If someone's local to your area, they're going to recognize those. They might even recognize the people. They might recognize the space. But right away, they have that peace of mind of like, hey, that's where I'm going to. That already makes me feel better about knowing what it's going to look like, as opposed to just the potential fear or anxiety of the unknown. And then the final phase there, and it's amazing the difference this makes in websites, is if people take professional images, have someone come in for a couple hours, take pictures of your team, pictures of the treatments, pictures of the space, maybe pictures around your building. And those photos go such a long way in having just this incredible experience on your website. We always flag those ones as websites that kind of set themselves apart. And I have a couple examples here of just when those photos kind of connect with what it means to be at your practice. It just, and usually they have a certain editing to them, a certain color tone to them. They just really stand out. So highly recommend if you can make that small investment. It really does seem to go a long way. And then the final tip here is using video on your website. This one can feel like it can take a little bit more, but it really goes such a long way as far as having people feel like they kind of get to know you a little bit more. And I was chatting with a colleague about this yesterday, and we were saying why this would be so helpful. And it's this idea that, like, let's say you're someone's asking you to be their counselor, and all of a sudden that video comes up and they hear your tone of voice, they hear your cadence, they get to see you and hear maybe some of your philosophy. Right away, that moment, again, for some people of just feeling this anxiety of I'm about to like pour my heart out to this person or pour my past out to this person, and I've never even talked to them before. That can be a really concerning potential. And so this idea of having video on your site that just helps bridge that gap of, hey, you're a real person. I can see you, I can hear you. I feel comfortable now coming and visiting you. It just goes such a long way. So it was actually neat too to see it in the websites I was pulling up yesterday, how this moment felt on his homepage of just seeing him and he's talking to his potential patients there. It was just a really cool effect. So hopefully those feel helpful. It's just some really practical tips. And I want to mention that if you want to do all of this better, we would love to help you. These are all the different philosophies that we've taken throughout building clinic sites and our entire platform here. And so just a quick highlight for anyone who doesn't know about clinic sites, I just want to mention with our platform, you can actually see a preview spun up in just a minute, and there's no setup fee for building a website with us. Super easy to make updates. We pride ourselves on having like real human support that you can contact anytime, and we're always making improvements to the platform. That Google review widget I showed earlier is actually included in all clinic sites websites. Our team would love to help you. There's a couple links here if you want to try it out or book a demo, but we'd love to help you with that. And then one other thing I want to mention, this is kind of a fun announcement, is we are announcing a new tool called the Clinic Bubble. If any of you have spun up a preview website recently, you'll have seen this in action, but this is a little tool. I'm going to actually show you a quick example of it here. In the bottom right corner, that video shows up. Really easy to upload your video, and you can actually have yourself appear in the bottom right corner, and then built into it is actually some calls to action. So as you start talking, you can have your book now button down there, contact us button, and it's just a really easy way to make your website that much more engaging. And show yourself. And again, kind of have one of these trust tools that we talked about earlier. So we're offering this for $29 a month. If you want to know more information about it or are interested in trying it out or setting it up on your website, just reach out to us, support@clinicsites.co, and we would love to help you out with that. Okay, awesome. Well, thanks everyone for joining us and jumping in.